Folks, Connor Joe just keeps hitting baseballs, and he needs to be playing every day. Period.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith, who is feeling much better today after taking the day off yesterday. I think a little bit of a cold ran up on me, but we are back today here on Wednesday, May 15th, here on the Locked On Pirates podcast, where you can follow me on Twitter at Locked On Pirates or at MVP_Ethan for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates, of course, losing to the Milwaukee Brewers on Tuesday evening, 4-3. Connor Joe, of course, homered in his third consecutive game. Quinn Priester had kind of that blow-up second inning that ended up being the difference for the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, going back to Monday, the Pirates won that one, so they will play their rubber match against the Milwaukee Brewers today. We'll talk about that in the final segment of today's show. But to kick off today's show, I really think that you have to start today's show by talking about Connor Joe and what he's been able to do for this Pirates roster, specifically this year. Even last season, Connor Joe was a guy that was valuable to this team in a lot of different ways, and he's been valuable to this team in a lot of different ways again this year, just a little bit more amplified than we've seen in the past. I mean, you're looking at a guy in Connor Joe who's in his early 30s still, originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, saw stints elsewhere, came back last year, and he's done well since coming back to the team that drafted him. And credit to Ben Cherington for bringing him back and noticing something in Connor Joe, because so far he's arguably been the most consistent hitter on this Pirates team in 2024. Now, as we spoke about a week and a half ago with Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies, that's not exactly the best thing in the world that Connor Joe has been your most consistent hitter, but it's also not the worst thing either. I mean, when a guy's hitting the baseball, he's hitting the baseball. Now, we obviously have had our thoughts about why Connor Joe is not in the lineup every single day, and why a certain somebody by the name of Rowdy Tellez has been getting time at first base still, even though he's been not that great. There are murmurs going around that his time could be coming to a close here pretty soon if he does not pick it up, but we'll see what Rowdy can do while he's still in a Pirates uniform. But I do want to bring up that Connor Joe, and even on my Monday show with Gary, I was corrected on this a little bit. He does get quite a bit of playing time. It might not seem like it because he's not starting every single day, even though a lot of us would like to see him start every single day, but he's still fifth in at-bats, excuse me, on this team with 123 on the year. So he's getting the opportunities, and he has done absolutely everything that he could possibly do with these opportunities. I mean, you look at his splits right now and his just stats overall. Connor Joe has a 293 average, a 370 on base, a 520 slugging, and an 890 OPS. That OPS number obviously leading the team right now. You add in the 6 homers and the 21 RBIs. 3 of those 6 homers have come in the last 3 games for Connor Joe, and he'll look for a 4th today against the Milwaukee Brewers, obviously homering on Saturday in that crazy game against the Chicago Cubs, had that 10th inning late home run against the Chicago Cubs to bring it within 1 on Sunday. And then, of course, on Tuesday last night, he homers again to bring the game within 1 late in the top of the 9th inning. So I believe he homered on Sunday, not Saturday. My apologies on that slip up. But you also just look at the other things that Connor Joe has done well, and a lot of it is just attributed to what he's been able to do in big situations, what he's been able to do when he puts the ball in play. And BABIP is one of my favorite statistics to look at for some of these guys, because what are you doing when the ball is in play? How does your average look when the ball is being put in play, because we know the old adage is always put the ball in play and good things happen. And that's what's been happening for a guy like Connor Joe. He has a 326 BABIP, which of course is a batting average of balls in play, and a 1.232 OPS with runners in scoring position. I love guys like Connor Joe who can go into the game, especially with runners in scoring position. And he's done it a lot as a pinch hitter this year as well, where they can go into the game and get you production when runners are scoring position and get runs on the board. Joe has done that. He also has a 1.166 OPS with 2 outs when batting with 2 outs. That is a major thing. Connor Joe, jokingly to me, has been a more clutch, way better version of 2023 Joshua Palacios to start this year. We all remember Joshua Palacios last year just having that crazy string of clutch moments, and we've seen those from Connor Joe this year. Now, obviously, some of those have not led to walk-off wins or putting the Pirates up late in games. More often, especially recently, it's been bringing the Pirates closer in games near the end of games. But Connor Joe, again, when he's been your most consistent bat that you've had in the lineup this year, that including O'Neal Cruz, who's had a very hot streak of things lately. And if he continues that through the next month or so, then I think that narrative can change a little bit. But he has a 302 average in his last 15 games, Connor Joe, that is. And when you keep breaking it down and hearing all these statistics, I know it gets frustrating to see a guy like Rowdy Tellez in the lineup every day, or to see the Jack Sawinskis of the world in the lineup, even though Jack even has just had an unlucky go of things. But that's just who Connor Joe is. He's a versatile defender, obviously can play either corner outfield spot, that being left field or right field, and of course plays first base. And I mean, Kutch has also had a rough go of things as well. He's been one of the more unlucky players in all of baseball this year. But I would even suggest that if Rowdy Tellez is going to be in the lineup, which they still have shown a willingness to do, and at the time of recording, we don't have a lineup card for this afternoon's game against Milwaukee in the rubber match, I would DH Connor Joe. Let him just hit. I mean, he's doing great things hitting the baseball, so why not just let him hit? And that's something that I think you could see as well. Now, Kutch obviously kind of has that DH spot on lock. Derek Shelton has come out and said that he wants to keep Kutch in that leadoff spot, even hinting at a lot of those things that Kutch has been getting unlucky with. Obviously, last night, smashed the ball to center field, and Sal Frelick absolutely robbed him. And I think that really changed the whole complexion of the end of that game last night. But Connor Joe is a guy that it's very hard to continue to just not sound like a broken record, but he's been consistent, and his bat has just been valuable pretty much wherever it's been, in whatever situation it's been, especially as a pinch hitter. He's done phenomenal as a pinch hitter this year. And I think that the Pirates recognize that. I think Derek Shelton recognizes that, but I do want to see a willingness to get him in the lineup more often than not. Now, I know, again, that he's been in the lineup quite a bit. He's been able to be one of these guys that can kind of shift around and be that pinch hitter or be that first baseman or be whatever Derek Shelton is asking him to be. But I also feel like when you're consistently hitting the baseball, you need to consistently be in the lineup in some way and getting more bats more often than not. And we see him pinch hit quite a bit when Rowdy is in games, especially late in games. His splits against righties are not terrible. I believe he's batting .272 against righties this year, or somewhere in that realm. And obviously batting above .300 against lefties. And with a lefty on the mound today in Robert Gasser, I would imagine that Connor Joe will play, but I would like to see him get a very good run. And I would like to see that with a lot of these guys like Jack Sawinski, Nick Gonzalez, Andrew McCutchen, the guys that are hitting the baseball. Even O'Neal Cruz today against a lefty. I would love to see Cruz still in the lineup because he's consistently putting a good bat on the ball right now. And what we've seen from this offense, especially over the last 2 or 3 weeks before they had that big offensive blow up against the Chicago Cubs, the offense hasn't been great. And the only way that I think that you're going to find consistency in the offense is when you find consistency in playing the guys that are being consistent. And Connor Joe is one of those guys. And that's something that we've talked about with Derek Shelton for a very long time now. That's something that Derek Shelton has kind of dodged a lot about how he constructs his lineups and what is going on. But for a guy like Connor Joe, get him at bats more often than not, because right now, albeit he may be playing above his projections, i.e., Ben Cherington, he's still producing. And that's what the Pirates need right now as they are in the middle of a major stretch against the NL Central. And Connor Joe, keep hitting baseballs, bud, and I'll keep talking about you here on the Locked On Pirates podcast. But one of the big talking points, especially over the last couple of days, has been pertaining to the Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen. Well, over the past couple of days, we've seen quite a bit of shakeup at that position group. So we're going to talk about those moves, talk about the guys coming up and the guys leaving. But before we do that, folks, we're going to hear from eBay Motors. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP, and you can win every time with parts that fit your ride over at eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. And folks, thank you so much to eBay Motors, of course, for being a wonderful sponsor of this show. And also, don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find it on YouTube and, of course, Amazon Fire TV. It is the 24/7 streaming channel featuring local hosts of Locked On who are bringing you your news and analysis in the sports world every single day. And we are talking, of course, about the Pittsburgh Pirates on today's episode of Locked On Pirates, as we always do every Monday through Friday here on YouTube and, of course, on audio via Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts on audio platforms. Please make sure you turn on the notification bell so you always know when Locked On Pirates is available to you. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and comment if you want to. I read the comments quite a bit and enjoy the comments that I get on these shows all the time. But over the last couple of days, folks, we've seen a lot of chatter about this Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen. Obviously, I was there Friday and Saturday in Pittsburgh for those games. Of course, you had the Hunter Stratton blow up, the Kyle Nicholas blow up, the Josh Fleming blow up, and Josh Fleming has become a casualty of the roster now. He is DFA'd as of yesterday, I believe, and it's not all surprising, really, that Fleming got got optioned and DFA'd. He just really hasn't had it over the last couple weeks. Got off to a really good start. Don't mind that. He had a very good spring training, got off to a really good start, obviously made it into the bullpen due to a lot of different injuries early on in the year to Colin Holderman and Carmen Mlodzinski. Obviously, Dowry Moretta out for the entire year as well. But a 10.38 ERA with a 2.42 whip in your last 7 games is going to be a cause for concern. And that's something that happened to Josh Fleming. He just has not had the same success that he had early on. And he has 6 earned runs and 9 hits allowed in his last 3 appearances, obviously going back through the Cubs series and the Brewers series when we were able to see Fleming. And albeit his ERA expected as a 4.72, still not a good ERA at all. It's in the 23rd percentile in all of baseball. It does leave the Pirates in an interesting spot because he was a southpaw option for them. He was a guy that we kind of expected could be a pretty fun option there outside of Aroldis Chapman. But with this move now to DFA Josh Fleming, you've now left Aroldis Chapman as your only left-handed option in the bullpen. Now, we've talked a lot about what could happen in the rotation for the Pittsburgh Pirates with the introduction of Paul Skeens and what that has created now for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But we'll see what the Pirates decide to do there. I don't think that the 6-man rotation is going to be a thing that we're going to see permanently. It is something that for now is sticking around. Obviously, Martin Perez going today, and then it'll be Jared Jones and Paul Skeens going in the first 2 games of the Cubs series. But I do expect that they will make a move with the rotation at some point, which will then in turn affect the bullpen. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of these moves right now, because when you're running even a temporarily 6-man rotation, you got to keep these guys fresh. And Josh Fleming, again, was fresh, but a 344 opposing batting average with balls in play is, 1, unlucky, but also 2, just not a good metric at all. His strikeout rates were not ever that great, and that's something that just speaks to Josh Fleming across his career. His walk rate was a little too high as well, and that's why Fleming is gone. In turn, Ryder Ryan is coming back up to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Obviously had 9 games earlier in the season before being optioned back to AAA. Performed very well in those 9 games. Had a 3 ERA, flat. And Ryder Ryan was one of those guys that early in the year, it looked like he could be that innings eater in the bullpen for whenever starters were struggling. Now, obviously, the starters have had a good run of things. Even Quinn Priester, with those 4 runs last night in that 1 inning, still managed to have a pretty good solid start for himself yesterday. But Ryder Ryan, much like Josh Fleming, is going to be one of those guys that the Pirates use as an innings eater to get that 1 or 2 innings before they hand it off to the high leverage guys like potentially a Carmen Mlodzinski, even though we don't know what his role will be. Aroldis Chapman, David Bednar, Colin Holderman, you know those guys already that are the high leverage guys. Now, he had 5 appearances in Indy. Ryder Ryan did 3.86 ERA. That's not terrible in those 5 appearances, but you really don't look at 5 appearances in AAA and look at the ERA too much and read too much into it. Now, something I do want to read into, though, is his sinker. Now, Ryder Ryan had a phenomenal pitch earlier in the year, it being the sinker. Derek Shelton even went out of his way to speak about that pitch and what it's useful for Ryder Ryan, and its biggest use is eliciting ground balls. And with that sinker this year, he has already posted a 40% ground ball rate on the sinker, and that's really going to be Ryder Ryan's bread and butter. If that sinker can operate in the zone, especially low in the zone, and elicit ground balls more often than not, then it is going to be a plus pitch for him. It is something that I think Ryder Ryan is going to lean into. It's something that I think that the bullpen and the Oscar Marine and Derek Shelton are going to want him to lean into, because that's where most of his success is derived from. But he also had a good run of things in high leverage situations earlier this year as well. A .083 opponent batting average with 2 outs, so he knew how to close out innings, and obviously a 1.76 opponent average with runners in scoring position. So Ryder Ryan could end up becoming a guy that comes into high leverage situations and gets the job done via the double play, via ground balls in the infield that can't allow a runner from second to score or a runner from third to score. That's the kind of stuff you want out of your bullpen. And again, this was a unit that in the offseason, I called this unit a top 10 unit in all of baseball. It's had its bad runs. It's had its good runs. And I think it's something that you're going to see a lot of this shakeup in the bullpen quite a bit, especially with the introduction of Skeens, especially with now the departures of certain players. You're going to start seeing some of these guys shuffle a lot. Ryder Ryan being one of those guys, and even potentially a guy like Carmen Mlodzinski, who also gets called up now and should be joining the team later this afternoon. He had a 2.25 ERA last year, was very, very good in high leverage situations last year. One of the big surprises of the season last year. Now, obviously, in 14 innings at AAA, not the greatest ERA, 6.60 ERA. Started on the IL this year, so he's been working his way back. Started facing batters a couple weeks ago. Obviously, starts getting in-game action in AAA, so it's nice to see that Carmen Mlodzinski is coming back to the bullpen, and hopefully will bring a lot of that fire that he brought last year and be able to also, much like Ryder Ryan, come into those high leverage situations, and we don't have to hold on to our butts, even though I feel like we do that anyway with this Pirates bullpen as of late. And then the big one I think that I wasn't able to really speak on over the weekend because I was in Pittsburgh was Roansy Contreras getting designated for assignment for, of course, Policygenius. And a lot of this just kind of sucks for Roansy. I mean, there really hasn't been a place for him in the rotation. There really hasn't been a place for him in the bullpen either. The way they used Roansy in the bullpen kind of puzzled me at times, much like how they've used Luis Ortiz, seeing as both of them are former starters. But the decline for Roansy has been there since 2022. Or since 2023, I'm sorry. He's had a 6.17 ERA since opening day of 2023. It just isn't working. I mean, we saw the decline pretty much ruin him last year to the point where he was in high A at one point trying to figure things out. And he just really ran out of time. And Ben Cherington even expressed that this was a tough decision. Obviously, Contreras was the big guy from the Jameson Taillon trade that was made a couple of years ago. And it's an unfortunate move, but it's a tough move. And I don't think that too many people will be upset that it was in favor of Paul Skeens. But really, the biggest question that I would pose for anybody that saw that move and was even remotely upset about it is find me a place for Roansy Contreras on this roster. It's kind of difficult, especially with the more pitching that you're going to be having coming along the way. The fact that he ran out of options, it just makes it tough. Now, I don't think we have news on it for Roansy was picked up via waivers or designated for or via his DFA, or if the Pirates have found a trade partner via that DFA. I'm sure that's something that we'll see come out eventually, but I would expect that a team would acquire him just due to his age, due to his good amount of experience, and just getting him a fresh start elsewhere in Major League Baseball. Now, that's the bullpen shakeup. We'll see what the Pirates do and how they perform with this new bullpen and this new look bullpen that we've seen. And we'll see how they do it today in a rubber match against the Milwaukee Brewers. Again, another rubber match in a series against the NL Central. The Pirates and the Brewers right now 3-3 right now against each other this year. So we'll see who has the upper hand exiting American Family Field, I think is what it's called. I still call it Miller Park. That's what I'm always going to call it. But we'll preview Game 3 pitching matchups, what the Pirates can expect against Robert Gasser. But before we do that, folks, let's hear from Prize Picks. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 because, folks, baseball is in full swing. And with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, you just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch your winnings roll in. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. You can even get in on the playoff action in the NBA and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks while playing alongside the world's best players and taking the game to a new level. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All you have to do is pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And thank you to Prize Picks and eBay Motors for being wonderful sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on May 15th, 2024. Hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday afternoon, morning, or evening whenever you're listening to this show on all of your feeds. And the Pirates, of course, will look for their first series win against the NL Central this afternoon against the Milwaukee Brewers. They had a chance to win the series against the Chicago Cubs on Sunday. They also had a chance to win the series the last time they played the Milwaukee Brewers in that split. But we'll see what the Pittsburgh Pirates can do today, and it will be Martin Perez on the bump for the Pittsburgh Pirates today. Comes in with this in this game with a 3.60 ERA. And he's allowed 7 earned runs over 10 1/3 innings pitched in his last 2 May starts. So we've seen Perez kind of tail off a little bit of what we saw in April. But still a guy that has not surrendered more than 4 earned runs in a start this year. So against a Milwaukee Brewers lineup that this offense obviously had a great day on Monday, getting back into that game when it seemed like the Pirates were just going to run away with it. Had a pretty decent day yesterday against Quinn Priester as well. But I think one of the big concerns that you see with Martin Perez right now, and albeit he's still pitching very well, has been a steady veteran presence since coming to the Pittsburgh Pirates earlier this year. His expected ERA is a 5.08. That's concerning because that means that he's getting lucky quite a bit, but everybody gets lucky in baseball every now and then. What's helped him, though, stay out of trouble a lot in these games has been the double plays that he's been able to elicit and a 42% ground ball rate. That's just been Martin Perez's game since he debuted all those years ago and throughout his MLB career. He's always been a guy that's had high ground ball rates, not the biggest strikeout guy, but I would like to see him get a lot of ground balls today against this Milwaukee Brewers lineup. And it's something that I think he can do. And to look at guys that have faced Martin Perez quite a bit in their career, 2 guys that are big components in this Milwaukee Brewers lineup, Willy Adames and Gary Sanchez, have seen Martin Perez a combined 32 times, 32 at-bats, and they only have a combined 598 OPS. So not a lot of success against Martin Perez that you can find from the Milwaukee Brewers, so that could spell very well for a guy like Martin Perez. Meanwhile, the Pirates will face left-hand pitcher Robert Gasser. Robert Gasser was a guy that probably would have made the Brewers rotation right out of spring if it were not for an injury that he sustained in spring training. And he's a pretty good pitcher, pretty young pitcher, pretty good pitcher as well. Obviously had a 6.0 innings pitched outing against the St. Louis Cardinals in his first start of the year. Did not allow an earned run in that start. Looking at a guy that features a fastball, a sweeper, a cutter, and a changeup mix. So some high strikeout upside for a guy like Robert Gasser. But as we know, the Pirates have had quite a bit of success against left-hand pitching this year. And speaking on this offense a little bit too, over the last 7 games, the Pirates offense has averaged 4.4 runs per game. Obviously much better than what we were seeing in that long 2-week stretch where they've just had no offense whatsoever against teams like the A's and the Angels and other teams that really they should have had a lot of success against, and pitchers that they should have had a lot of success against. And as I mentioned earlier, the Pirates come into this an even 3-3 versus Milwaukee this year. They're 4-5 against the NL Central. It would be a major plus to get this win against the Milwaukee Brewers and win their first series against the NL Central this year. Milwaukee, if you guys are betting, folks, minus 147 on FanDuel. The over-under in this game is 8.5. That hit on Monday, did not hit yesterday. So take that with what you will. But we'll see what the Pirates can do against the Milwaukee Brewers today at what I will still call Miller Park in Milwaukee. Pirates looking for their first win in division, or first series win in division this year in 2024. It'll be Martin Perez, it'll be Robert Gasser, and hopefully it'll be Connor Joe in the offense leading them to victory. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show free and available to you Monday through Friday on YouTube, Spotify, or your audio platforms everywhere. Because again, it's free and available. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and the notification bell so you always know when Locked On Pirates is coming to you. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And folks, I'll see you on the flip side.